You think the blue whale is the heaviest animal to ever exist on Earth. You're right, it is the heaviest known animal. But what about among the unknown? Could there be a creature heavier than the blue whale? Yes, there is. It's called Ichthyotitan. Ichthyotitan lived approximately 201 million years ago, during the late Triassic. That was a world completely unimaginable to humans. No whales, no megalodons, and no mosasaurs. That deep ocean was like an empty throne, waiting for someone to claim it. And Ichthyotitan was the creature that took that seat. Based on estimates from fossils discovered so far, the largest known individual reached about 26 meters in length and weighed around 120 tons. But this number is very likely just a conservative estimate, because another fossil from the same period exists, referred to as the os giant. That jawbone is even larger than Ichthyotitan's type specimen. If we apply it to the same calculation formula, this individual's weight could be close to 175 tons. Just like a 120-ton blue whale is just an average adult, then the theoretical upper limit for this species would be nearly 280 tons. 280 tons. This already exceeds any creature humans have ever seen. But you might ask, how could a reptile grow to be so heavy? That's a good question. Because reasonably speaking, reptiles are supposed to be lean and agile. Look at mosasaurs, look at plesiosaurs. Though they were fierce, compared to whales, they were sleek. Reptiles usually don't rely on massive blubber for warmth. But Ichthyotitan took a different path. It found a loophole. It lived in the deep, open ocean, far from the coasts, needing to migrate and hunt across thousands of kilometers of ocean. In this scenario, the larger the body, the more energy it actually saves. Just like a 10,000-ton cargo ship is more fuel efficient than a speedboat. Its massive size allowed every sweep of its tail to generate immense propulsion. Even better, it unlocked a survival cheat code called gigantothermy. Once body size reaches a certain point, the body generates heat faster than it can dissipate. Your body basically becomes a furnace that never cools down, allowing you to cruise freely through the freezing deep sea. This was a privilege granted by evolution, and the source of its confidence to rule the Triassic oceans. As for the issue of gravity, gravity in water is largely offset by buoyancy. On land, an animal skeleton exceeding 100 tons would collapse under its own weight. But in the ocean, buoyancy takes care of everything. You just need to make yourself bigger. Nature wrote every line of code for this creature. It just needed to keep growing. So, what did it look like? If you first look at a reconstruction of Ichthyotitan, you'll probably say, "Isn't that just a dolphin?" You're half right. It does look a lot like a dolphin's streamlined body, dorsal fin, crescent-shaped tail fin. But it was an ancient marine reptile. This phenomenon is called convergent evolution. Nature repeatedly reinvented the same perfect design across entirely different species. Dolphins, sharks, and ichthyosaurs. Though their ancestors were completely different, they were all forced by the laws of physics to evolve into the same shape. Because that is the fastest and most energy-efficient configuration for swimming in water. Evolution never cares about originality. It only cares about what works. And then it all came to an end. 201 million years ago, the Triassic period ended in a brutal manner. The crust tore open in the Central Atlantic magmatic province super-eruption. Lava spewed continuously across the Earth for millions of years. Massive amounts of carbon dioxide surged into the atmosphere. Oceans acidified, and the food chain began to collapse from the bottom up. Ichthyotitan wasn't killed directly. Starvation is what killed it. A 200-ton creature needs to consume an astronomical amount of food every day. When cephalopods and giant fish in the ocean began to vanish, This massive body size instantly turned from an advantage into a curse. The biggest are always the first to fall. This is nature's most brutal law. The more you consume, the more vulnerable you are. Just like that, the only reptile on Earth capable of rivaling the blue whale vanished into history. After this, though the ichthyosaur family didn't go completely extinct, no species ever dared to grow to this size again. Jurassic ichthyosaurs became smaller and faster, turning from cargo ships back into speedboats, finding another way to survive in this world. That throne belonging to giant beasts remained vacant for nearly 200 million years, until 50 million years ago, when certain mammals returned to the ocean, slowly evolved into whales, before life could occupy that position once more. Every time I think about this, I can't help but feel a sense of melancholy. The Titan ichthyosaur spent tens of millions of years honing its body into a flawless masterpiece, only to perish in a disaster that had nothing to do with it. It didn't lose to an enemy, nor did it lose to a rival. It lost to an empty ocean, one that could no longer provide enough food. All giants ultimately fall to the exact same thing. They depend too heavily on this world. And now, we have only found 3 bones. These 3 bones are all that this 200-million-year-old behemoth left behind to prove its existence to Earth. Scientists estimate that, of all the animals that have ever existed, less than 0.1% actually became fossils, and we found only a tiny fraction of those. This means it's almost impossible for us to know a full picture of that ancient ocean. Perhaps deep within some mountain range, inside a rock that hasn't been excavated yet, an even larger bone is still sealed away, belonging to a creature we haven't even imagined. Perhaps 280 tons wasn't the upper limit at all. We always assume the blue whale is the ceiling for life on Earth. But the truth is, this planet was once crazier and vaster than we think. The Titan ichthyosaur's existence reminds us that nature's true boundaries have always been further than what we know. Those fossils we have yet to find, those leviathans that haven't been named, they all truly lived once. In some ancient, silent, deep sea, they left behind massive wakes. It's just that we haven't found them yet. Next up, what you will face are the 5 wipe and reset beta tests since Earth Online launched. The first server wipe, Ichthyotitan, shutdown. The late Ordovician mass extinction. 440 million years ago, the land servers for Earth Online hadn't opened yet. All players were crowded into the ocean. Cameroceras, trilobites, and corals, as the very first batch of players, made the entire server look thriving and prosperous. Species diversity hit an all-time high since the server opened. Then came the update for the first server wipe. The supercontinent Gondwana in the southern hemisphere drifted over the South Pole, triggering a hidden event, global freezing, with glaciers rolling over from the poles, causing sea levels to plummet by over 100 meters. Consider this. Back then, 85% of the players lived on the shallow continental shelves. Once the waters receded, most players couldn't adapt to the patch update. Temperatures plummeted, and it wasn't just cold. After the oceans receded, ocean circulation collapsed, plunging vast areas of the ocean into anoxia. They were also suffocated. The result was around 85% of players logging off permanently. The trilobite family suffered a precipitous decline, nearly facing a total party wipe at the time. But the 15% of players who made it through withstood the dual trials of extreme cold and anoxia. Their levels advanced by more than just a single patch version compared to before the extinction. The second server wipe, Late Devonian extinction. The Late Devonian mass extinction. After the Devonian patch update, fish players received a buff. Fish players unlocked the backbone talent tree. Dunkleosteus, an 8-meter long, over 600-kilogram armored behemoth, claimed the #1 title on the global server leaderboard. Meanwhile, the first environmental optimization patches rolled out, and fern forests began expanding rapidly. This patch caused a major bug. The plants were way too hot. Their root systems dug deep into the soil, aggressively absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. Sounds like a good thing, right? But carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. After too much of it was drained away, global temperatures began to plummet. At the same time, massive amounts of organic matter washed into the oceans, causing algal blooms that aggressively consumed dissolved oxygen in the water. The system failed to roll out a hotfix in time, and the ocean turned into a toxic soup, slowly boiling all the frogs. Because of server lag, this server wipe update dragged on for an extremely long time. It lasted for nearly 20 million years, from start to finish. Around 75% of players logged off and never signed back in. The coral reef ecosystem was completely uprooted. For the next 140 million years on Earth, large-scale coral reefs never appeared again. Dunkleosteus, sitting at the top of the leaderboard, also announced their permanent retirement from the game. Their accounts were deleted because the ocean was just unlivable. A group of fleshy-finned fish players were forced to crawl onto land. They put their skill points into primitive lungs and clumsy limbs, becoming the first vertebrates to land. They kept leveling up in subsequent patch updates, and eventually became you and me. The third data wipe, the Great Dying, the end Permian mass extinction. This was the most brutal and thorough server wipe in the 4.6 billion year operating history of Earth Online. Officially nicknamed the King of Extinctions, about 252 million years ago, at the end of the Permian, the supercontinent Pangaea had just finished assembling. Reptiles ruled the land, and marine species thrived. Trilobite players were still in the game, and the whole ecosystem looked rock solid. Then Siberia's underground exploded. A massive network of supervolcanoes, covering over 2.5 million square kilometers, spewed magma continuously for hundreds of thousands of years. Carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide filled the atmosphere. Global temperatures soared by over 10 degrees. Oceans acidified, oxygen levels plummeted, and the ozone layer was riddled with holes. How bad was this update? Over 96% of marine players quit the game. About 70% of terrestrial vertebrate players deleted their accounts, and even insects weren't spared. This is the only record in Earth's history where insects also suffered a mass extinction. After struggling for 270 million years, trilobites, the beta players, finally logged off, cursing all the way. After this catastrophe, it took Earth at least 5 million years to recover. The fourth data wipe, Jurassic Reboot. The end Triassic mass extinction. About 201 million years ago, Triassic dinosaurs had just created their accounts and were still leveling up in the starter village. The real big bosses at the top of the leaderboard were a group of players called Pseudasupians. They looked like crocodiles, but could run upright. In front of them, dinosaur players were just low-tier, bronze-ranked mobs. Then, Pangaea began to rip apart. The Central Atlantic magmatic province erupted. Volcanoes, greenhouse gases, and ocean acidification all over again. The script was almost identical to the last one, just on a slightly smaller scale. This patch's server wipe was terrifyingly fast. In probably less than 10,000 years, about 70% of players stopped playing. Pseudasupians wiped out server-wide overnight. Yet dinosaurs, those inconspicuous small-bodied players at the time, actually managed to survive. Without the suppression of Pseudasupians, they began to climb the leaderboard, from land to sky to sea, becoming the server-dominating players for 135 million years. The fifth data wipe, Cretaceous extinction. The end Cretaceous mass extinction. The final data wipe, and also the most famous one. In the late Cretaceous period, dinosaur players had ruled Earth for over 100 million years. The Tyrannosaurus rex ranked first in combat power. Pterosaurs maxed out their flight talent points, and Mosasaurus swept through the deep sea. The system originally seemed stable, but the Earth Online server suffered an external attack. An asteroid about 10 to 15 kilometers in diameter, at a speed of 20 kilometers per second, slammed into what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The impact energy was equivalent to 5 to 10 billion Hiroshima atomic bombs detonating simultaneously. The shockwave instantly swept across the globe. Dust blotted out the sky, sunlight was completely blocked, and Earth entered nuclear winter mode. Plants could not perform photosynthesis, and the food chain began to collapse from the very bottom. With ocean acidification, about 75% of players couldn't handle the environmental changes and quit. All non-avian dinosaurs were knocked out. Tyrannosaurus rex secured its rare single-character ID, the Dinosaur Guild, which had ruled for over 100 million years, left the group chat one after another within a few years. But some players still survived, a group of small-bodied, warm-blooded, nocturnal mammals. By grinding it out in underground burrows for millions of years, they finally waited out for their own patch update. The ecological niches were empty, competitors were gone, and they began an explosive evolution. Primates appeared, apes appeared, and tens of millions of years later, Homo sapiens is about to log in.